Well, hello, you guys. Guess what? It's Christi Friesen, and I'm here with Spirit Fingers and Jazz Hands because I wanted to tell you a new fashion statement that's sure to hit the nation: latex gloves. If you're not already wearing them with all of your outfits, you're missing out. Actually, none of that is true. I've got these on because today we're going to make a mess, and making a mess is very fun, but you don't want the remnants of it to tint you for the rest of your life. So we're going to play with Swellegant, which involves metals and dyes, both of which can be very staining. So first thing you want to do before we do anything else is go find a pair of latex gloves so you're ready to play. All right, so take a look at this owl. If you have not already made one of these out of polymer clay, there is a project here that will walk you through all the steps. It's super easy. Polymer clay is great fun, and it is a perfect candidate for adding the Swellegant coatings to. Takes to it like a charm. Very fun, very easy. All right, so you've made your owl, you've baked it, which brings me to my first point. The Swellegant goes on baked polymer clay. If you put it on raw polymer clay, it kind of peels off, so that's pointless. Bake it, come on back, and you're ready to go. Speaking of baking, occasionally your oven will have a little gremlin that got inside somehow, and it'll decide that it would be really humorous to scorch all of your polymer clay. This happens to everyone. You're not alone. So what you want to do is have a little bit of a cry, but don't throw it against the wall or stomp off or go into a depression. Just realize that now you can make that into copper, metal, bronze, something exciting, all right? So that extends the life of your clay projects by giving you other options. Now, if you'll notice here, besides our little happy pink owl, there is brass and copper, silver, bronze, and rusted iron, all looks that you can achieve with Swellegant. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on brass today. The process is pretty much identical for all of the coverings, so we're going to just walk you through one step. First thing is, when you're dealing with polymer, because it's a non-porous surface, you probably want to coat it with prep. Prep is another one of the products in the lineup, and it's just kind of like painting it with sort of a gluey paint. What this does is it grabs to that non-porous surface like glass or resin or polymer and gives the metal coating something to really bond to. If you're using something like wood or plaster or paper, you don't need to do that step. But for polymer, it's very helpful. Then the next step is just coating it with the coating of metal of your choice. Now, I've already done this to this little guy. He's got one coating of brass on there. Sometimes it needs two. If there's little gaps of the prep underneath that are showing through, you might want to give it another coating so that everything is coated. This air dries very quickly. It only takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to dry. If you're impatient, like I am, you can get your hair dryer out and make it go faster, or you can pop it in and out of the oven at the same temperature as you use for polymer clay. It is fine with that. It's not going to hurt it at all. Okay, so now you've got your base coat on. Everything's ready. The owl's ready to go. Now, the thing about the metal coatings is, for some reason, the patinas really like to react to the metal coating while the metal coating is still moist. It just makes everything happen faster. It's much more satisfying to watch that occur quickly, and then you can move on to your next steps that much faster. So the one rule I want you to remember, because pretty much you can't mess up anything when you're playing with Swellegant, is you want to put patinas on moist metal. Let's talk about patina for a very quick second. Patina is a natural reactive force that makes your metal oxidize. That just means it turns it green if it's copper and brass and bronze, or it turns it rusty if it's iron. It just brings out what would happen in nature. So essentially, you and Mother Nature, you're getting together, you're making some magic happen in a messy and satisfying way. All right, so now we've got our one brass coating. I'm going to take a paintbrush, and I tend to use something that's got a little flat head here, like a very soft paintbrush that you would use for acrylic painting or that kind of thing. And I've got a little cup, and I've poured some of the brass Swellegant into. Make sure that you shake it first. Before you shake it, make sure the lid is closed, because that could be a very interesting studio look. If that happens, pretend that you meant it to be that way, put some finger marks in it, and just say it's modern art. It's all good. All right, so now I've got a little bit in here, and I'm going to dip my brush in, and all I'm going to do, in fact, let me get that out of the way because the next step happens quickly, is I am just going to brush all over. You see how very diligently and carefully not. It's a messy process. Enjoy it. Embrace the chaos, baby, and then make order out of it. So now I've got a nice little coating all over. I've got my water here because these are all water reactive. They wash and clean up with water. And I've got a big wad of paper towels, because you always need a wad of paper towels when you're being artsy. And now I'm going to take this patina. There are several patinas. This one happens to be the green gold verdigris, and that's a very good one to use with brass. This is still nice and tacky. If it was really hot outside, I'd need to move quicker. And you can use a mister, like a little spritz bottle. You can use a sponge, or you can use a brush, or you can just dump it all over the place if that's your thing. But what I'm doing is I am dabbing. You see how I'm dabbing, dabbing, dabbing carefully. I'm not brushing because I don't want to move around that coating that I just put on. All right, so what's happening now is there is a chemical reaction between the patina and the metal. And you can kind of see this starting to happen. First, it will look like sludge. If it looks like sludge or sewage, you're doing it correctly. Then that sludge and sewage will kind of have a little bit of algae bloom here and there. Then that algae will get mossy, then that mossy will just look like wonderful greenness. That's what you want to happen on this color. Rust, of course, would do the same thing, but in more orange tones. Silver just gets dark because that's what silver does, so that's that. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this little dude do its thing over here, because the blooming process, which is the technical term for what the patina is doing, it is happening at a molecular level. So all that bloom is happening in the metals itself, and it takes a little bit of time. You'll notice things happening within 5 minutes, but then 15 minutes, a half an hour later is when it really starts looking good. And I would suggest that if you wanted to get to the finished look, which is just like this, that you give it a good hour or two, or even do all this, let it sit overnight, then come back into it in the morning. The reason is patina and metals do their thing whether you want them to or not. That's part of the embrace the chaos Mother Nature thing of this. It's not a paint by number where you put green here and green stays there. It's doing whatever it wants. And the beauty of that is you are going to get these natural patina reactions that aren't faked. They're not almost, they're not sort of the right colors if I got it right. They're the real deal. And they will do some pretty spectacular and unexpected things. So you're going to want that process to happen without you interfering with it. Then, once it's done, you can look at it and go, I like that over here, I don't like this here, I'm going to put some blue over there, then you impose your own artistic order on top of it. But for now, just let it do its thing. That's kind of the excitement of it. Then you can take complete credit for something that you didn't do, which is very satisfying as an artist. All right, so now I've got a piece of cardstock here. I'm going to put this guy on. This is the patina that has bloomed completely. So you can kind of see there's like some greeny parts in here, some blue parts. This is just using the green gold verdigris. If I wanted to, I could mix patinas because there's several in the lineup, and I could even put dyes in there to enhance a little bit the color. Like, for example, let's take a look at this dude. You see how he's got all kinds of sort of a bluey green, and then there's a bunch of white? That's because I used the white dye and just blopped it on top while the patina was happening. Would you like to see that? Maybe you do. Let's move him aside for a minute and let's blop a little on there so you can see how bloppage occurs. So I'm going to take this little guy here. I'm going to go back to a little small brush, and I'm going to pick up just a tiny, tiny bit of purple dye, and I'm going to dab this in and use water to dilute it a little bit, all right? So I'm just going to play that around. Don't even have to worry. I'll put it back, and we'll see what happens from there. But what this does is it now lets the dye react with the patina. So see that? Sorry, I've got it right up there. You should be able to see that very good. I just use my paintbrush to dab. And I like having a tiny little paintbrush. Let me get that back again like this, because I can move that around. See that? Just dip, 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 dip. And what that will do is as the patina blooms, this dye, which is its buddy, is going to hang out with it and party and make a little bit of purple in there. So I'm going to put this little dude over here, and it will continue its blooming process and do what it does. But as we notice for this guy, you see how the white just kind of soaks in and it makes it a very natural look. That's kind of the key to this. This is a natural looking process. So if you're looking for uber shiny or uber enamel, do something else. This is that natural, vintage, lovely, sometimes grungy, sometimes just aged and classic look. That's what you're going to achieve with this. Okay, so now let's go back to little owl dude here who's already got all his green on, and we're going to do the next step. When you have this all finished, I'm going to move this, one less thing for me to drop on the floor. When you have all this bloom done and the patina is good, you might go, I love that. It looks like I was just in the middle of Syria and unearthed this Babylonian treasure. That's great. I love that look too. Totally good. You might also go, well, that just looks like a big pile of green and I hate it. That's okay. If it does look like that, the next step will make it be awesome. So are you ready for the next step? This is where the gloves come in really handy because we're going to finger paint. Now you can use a brush, you can use a sponge, you can use other things, but I like getting my fingers on it, and that's up to you. Some of you won't. But the reason why is you can rub the metal on the surface just where you want it with your fingertips. So I'm going to stick my finger into the metal, and I've got like a little cardstock here, and I'm just kind of tapping around and making a mess. Now, why am I doing that? It's because there's a lot of moisture in this metal coating, and I don't want so much moisture on there because then it'll slide all over the top like a paint. I don't want to look like a paint. I want it to look more natural. So if I get some of that moisture out and it starts becoming tacky, then when I pick this guy up and I start sliding over the top, you see how it's just going to kind of crumble over the surface and not get into a bunch of areas that I don't want. So now see what is happening already. Look at the difference here between this side and this side. All those features that you put in your polymer work are popping because now the metal's on the surface of things, and you still get the patina down in the edges. Let's keep going. Let's see how this looks. And you can again mix and match at this stage if you decided that, oh, that looks pretty good, but I really would like some silver on top of there too. You can. You cannot put this in the wrong order. None of them are going to go, oh, that color with that color, that was stupid. No, they all like each other. They all play well together, and you really can't do it wrong. Worst case scenario, you put something on here and you go, oh, I regret that. You just let it dry, coat it all over again, and start again. The more layers there are on this, the better it looks. I have some of these because I do demonstrations at places that I go, and I have some of these that have 15 and 16 layers of all different color stuff, and not only does that mean metals that are underneath kind of pull up to the surface, which is interesting, but it also means that it gets grungier looking and a little bit more metallic and just funner and funner. All right, so you're not done till you say you're done. So how does that look? That's pretty cool, isn't it? So you can see the difference between what it was with all that green and now the extra brass added to the top. Let's take a little look at our guy right now. Look at how we've gone from the sludge and that sewage look. We're starting to get a little bit of algae going on there, right? Right? Told you we would. Isn't that looking good? Still actually looking kind of like crap, but it's a good kind of crap with potential. So that's what you want. All right, we'll go back to this. So now I've rubbed in as much of the metals as I want. I'll keep that there, put a lid on it because you want to come back and forth to that. Now I'm going to look at it and go, okay, so now what? Is that enough? Do I need dye on there? Yeah, of course we do. The dye is another one of the products. And again, there's a video all about the dyes, so you can familiarize yourself with those. But what they do is they add color, either to the process while the patina is happening or afterwards if you want to really hit it with a bit more intense color. The dyes are made to soak into the metal, and that means the metal coating or other metals, and there's videos about that, but they're made to soak into the metal and they kind of tint it from the inside out. So it's not going to be a surface coloring like you would get with Gilder's paste or alcohol inks, which you can both use with this, by the way. But what it will do is it'll soak in and it'll get very natural, and you will build up the level of intensity according to your whim. So if you do not want super, super, super bright, just put a little on. In fact, if we look at our little guy again, a lot of that purple has kind of vanished. So it might be like, oh, okay, well, when it's all done, maybe I want to put a bit more purple on there because that wasn't enough for me. So that's all your call. Okay, we're going to go back to my little brush again and keep your piece of paper towel handy, and we're going to just paint in dye in the appropriate areas. You can water it down with water. You can use the other dyes, like there's a white. So if I wanted more lavender instead of intense purple, I could do that. And I'm just going to paint a little bit of on there. The more water you use, the more you can move it around, and the more diluted it will get. And sometimes you want that. You don't want it to be too intense. So can you see what I'm doing here? I'm just kind of putting that in there. That makes his eyeballs really stand out. And because I smudged a little bit on this eye when I was putting my metals on, I can pretend that it was perfect all along by just putting this dye here. Now this dye will keep reacting with water. So that means once it's soaked into the metal, it's not permanent yet. So you want to be careful about that. The metal coatings, they dry kind of permanently, almost like an acrylic paint would, but the dyes are still reactive with water. So I have a trick for you. All right, before I tell you the trick, let me show you him so far. He's looking fun. Look at his little eyeballs. Ain't he a cutie? So we've got this fun little guy with his nice bright eyes. Okay, so once that's all dry and you go, okay, I love it. That's great. I don't want the dye to go anywhere else. I love it how it is. I want it to be done already, and I don't want any of the patina to rub off and that kind of thing. There is a sealant as part of the product line, and that is fantastic for putting on top of the surface and sealing your product. Now the trick, if you want, you can mix the sealant in the dye, and when you paint it on, that will make it permanent at that stage. All right, so if you want to wait and put it all on afterwards, that's fine. But if you want to mix the sealant in the dye while you're working with it, that will make it permanent, whether you're putting it on metal or on metal coatings. Doesn't that sound exciting? All right, so you look at this and go, okay, I really love it. That's fantastic. I'm done. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. I want to put this. I want to put that. You can keep playing. It's not over till you say it is. But look at how metalicious that is. Pretty easy steps, right? It sounds like, oh, that's a lot to remember, but it isn't. It's finger painting and it's playtime. So my suggestion to you is cover your surface, get your gloves on, lay out all the things to be painted, and just play. Play over here, play over there, add some more to that, wait to see what that happens, check your blooms from time to time and see what's going on, and just enjoy the process of being at one with a unexpected variety of color choices. So what do you think? Isn't Swellegant exciting and amazing? I am really delighted that you could be here with me today, and I am so glad that Fire Mountain Gems was hosting this terrific creativity time together. Don't forget, firemountaingems.com has all of the things you need for your creativity. You and me, we'll do the creative thing. They got everything else. They've got Swellegant, they've got Polymer things, there are other videos, just so many things to play with here. And then come on back and find me another time and we'll play with something else. Thanks.